Oh, my dears, pull up a chair. Pour yourself a cup of tea. I need to tell you a story. It's not one of those delightful stories I usually tell, about how my neighbor's nephew turned $100 bill into a thriving little business. No, this one is harder. It's a story that sits heavy in my chest, and I'm telling it to you because I couldn't bear it if what happened to my old friend Eleanor happened to you. It wasn't a stock market crash that did in Eleanor and her husband Robert. It wasn't a terrible illness, or a child who needed bailing out of a bad situation. It was a bag of coffee beans. Can see you blinking. Granny, you're saying, what on earth are you talking about? I'm talking about a $3.50 bag of gourmet coffee beans. That's what Eleanor was holding, standing in the middle of her beautiful, sun-filled kitchen, when she finally, truly understood that her entire retirement was built on sand. And by then, darlings, the tide was already coming in. I've known Eleanor and Robert for nearly 40 years. We were neighbors back when our children were all scraped knees and bicycle chains. Eleanor was a schoolteacher, the kind every child deserves, patient, kind, and with a laugh that could light up a dim room. Robert was a manager at the local manufacturing plant, a steady, solid man who coached Little League and always had a firm handshake for you. They did everything right. Doesn't that just send a shiver down your spine? They did everything we are all told to do. They bought a sensible house in a good neighborhood and paid it off 5 years before Robert's retirement party. They raised 2 wonderful children, a doctor and an engineer, who were successful and off on their own. They didn't carry credit card debt. And for 35 years, Robert diligently put money into his 401k. And when Eleanor left teaching to raise the children, they rolled her little pension into an IRA and never, ever touched it. When Robert finally turned 67, they threw a big party in their backyard. The one with the big, shady oak tree. Oh, it was lovely. All their friends were there, the kids flew in, and Robert gave a speech about the next chapter. I remember him raising a glass of champagne, his face glowing. "We did it, Ellie," he said. "We've got a paid-for house, 2 great kids, and—" drumroll please, $1 million in the bank. Well, the cheer that went up, you could have heard it in the next county. $1 million. In 2018, that still felt like a magic number. It was the finish line. They had won. They were, by every measure, the perfect example of the American dream. And that, my dears, was the beginning of the end. You see, Eleanor and Robert ran their finances like a lot of couples from their generation. They operated in what I call 2 separate silos. Robert handled the big picture. He was the investor. Once a quarter, he would sit down at the big oak desk in their den, the one he was so proud of. He'd get the statements from their 401k and IRA, which he'd had rolled over into a brokerage account. He'd log into the computer, look at the big fat number at the top of the screen and smile. He'd track the market. If the S&P 500 was up, he'd clap his hands and say, "We're up 8%, Ellie." He was the guardian of the nest egg. Eleanor, on the other hand, handled the day-to-day. She was the manager. She paid the utilities from the local bank checking account. She paid the property taxes. She bought the groceries, paid the gas bill, and managed the household. And she was frugal. This was a woman who would drive 5 extra minutes to go to the grocery store that had chicken on sale for 99 cents a pound. She was the guardian of the checkbook. Do you see the problem? It's as wide as the Grand Canyon. Robert knew the total. Eleanor knew the details. But in 40 years of marriage, neither one of them had ever sat down and added up all of Eleanor's little details to see what they cost for one single month. They had no idea what their burn rate was. That's a term the young people use now, but it's a good one. How much money does it take to be you for 30 days? How much fuel does your life engine burn just sitting in the driveway? They didn't know. They had a feeling. Robert's feeling was, we're millionaires, we're fine. Eleanor's feeling was, I'd better use this coupon, things are so expensive. And for 40 years, while Robert's paycheck was coming in, it worked. The paycheck was the river that filled their little checking account lake, and Eleanor just paid the bills from it. But the day the paychecks stopped, the river dried up. And they were left with a lake that, unbeknownst to them, had a giant, invisible hole in the bottom. Their first year of retirement was a honeymoon. And who could blame them? They'd earned it. Robert's been driving the same old sedan for 15 years, Eleanor told me over coffee one morning. His back has been bothering him, and he just wants something a little higher off the ground, you know? A week later, a brand new, shiny black SUV was in their driveway. Not a Lexus, mind you. They weren't flashy. Just a good, solid, top-of-the-line Ford. We got a wonderful deal, Robert told me, beaming. 0% financing for 36 months. Can you believe it? It's practically free money. But Robert, I said gently as I could, it's not free. Still a car payment. A $780 car payment, every single month. He waved his hand, just like he always did when he wanted to dismiss a small worry. Granny, come on. We've got $1 million. What's $780? That was the first little cut. Then their old friends from the plant, the ones who had really good pensions, convinced them to join the nice golf and tennis club. Not the outrageously expensive one in the city, but the local one. Eleanor, it's wonderful, she gushed to me on the phone. They have water aerobics and a lovely lunch special. And Robert can play golf with his buddies 3 times a week. We're getting so much exercise. That was another $450 a month, every single month, whether they used it or not. Then came the trips. The kids, bless them, wanted to do a family vacation every summer. But now that the kids had good jobs, the family vacation wasn't a rented cabin at the lake. It was a week at Disney World, in one of the nice resorts. Or a cruise to the Caribbean. We have to pay for our own flights and our room, of course, Eleanor explained. But it's worth it to see the grandkids. They were spending, with all the little extras, about $800 a year on that one-week trip. Do you see what's happening? Not one of these things was bad. They didn't buy a yacht. They didn't start gambling. I just relaxed. They just stopped saying no. Robert, in his investor silo, would top up the checking account whenever Eleanor said it was running low. He'd log into his brokerage account, sell a few shares of this or that, and transfer $5,000. Maybe $8,000. How much should you be taking out, Robert? I asked him one day at a neighborhood barbecue. He was grilling burgers, and he looked at me like I'd asked him to explain rocket science. Granny, I just take what we need. We're fine. The market was up 12% last year. We made, $120,000. We're richer than we were last year. I had to put my burger down. My appetite was gone. Robert, I said, that's not how it works. That $120,000 is on paper. It's not real until you sell. But the $780 for the car, that's real money going out the door every single month. He just chuckled. You worry too much, Granny. It's like Warren Buffett always says. The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. I'm a patient man. I looked at him. Yes, Robert. But Mr. Buffett also lives in the same house he bought in 1958. Are you? He didn't have an answer for that. The "oh" moment, as I call them, didn't come all at once. It was a slow dawning, and it started with Eleanor. She was at her kitchen desk, the little one by the window, paying the bills. And she just felt squeezed. The property taxes had gone up 8% that year. Not a crisis, but it was another $400. The insurance on their new, expensive-to-repair SUV was double what the old sedans had been. The utility bill. Well, you all know about that. Eleanor, being the frugal soul she was, started cutting back. She stopped buying the name-brand detergent. She started driving to that cheaper grocery store again. She and Robert had a genuine raised-voice argument about turning the thermostat down to 68. She was agonizing over $10 and $20 decisions. Meanwhile, Robert was looking at the market. It was 2022. And the market, darlings, was not going up. It was going down. And down. Robert stopped giving his quarterly "we're up" announcements. The den door stayed closed a lot more. But the real crisis was the HVAC. It was August. It was 98 degrees in the shade. And their 25-year-old air conditioner gave a sad, metallic screech and died. The man came out. He was a nice young fella, but he had bad news. "Ma'am, I can't patch this. The whole system is shot. You're going to need a new one." The estimate was $18,000. Eleanor burst into tears. Robert, bless his heart, went into fix-it mode. "Don't you worry, Ellie," he said, patting her shoulder. "It's an emergency. We'll just take it from the IRA. That's what it's there for." He called his brokerage. He sold $18,000 worth of stock, at the bottom of the market, to pay for it. That was when Eleanor called me. She was weeping. "I just don't understand, Granny," she sobbed. "We're millionaires. Why does an $18,000 bill feel like the end of the world?" I feel poor." I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment for nice was over. It was time for Granny. "Eleanor," I said, my voice firm but I hope still kind. "Meet me for coffee tomorrow. My house. And bring your last 3 months of everything. Every bank statement. Every credit card statement. Every bill." "Why?" she asked, sniffing. "Because," I said, "it's time you two finally learned how to read." She came over the next morning. Robert, to my surprise, was with her. He looked defensive, his arms crossed over his chest, like a man being dragged to the doctor. "Eleanor said you wanted to look at our finances," he said stiffly. "Granny, I really don't think that's any." "Hush, Robert," I said, setting 3 mugs on my kitchen table. "I'm not looking at them. You are." I pulled out a yellow legal pad and a calculator. "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through these statements line by line and add up every single dollar you spent for the last 90 days. We're going to find your burn rate." For the next 2 hours, my kitchen was silent except for the rustle of paper and the click-click-click of the calculator. I made them write it all down in columns. Column 1, fixed needs. Property tax, monthly Is $450 home insurance, $200 utilities. Gas, electric, water $550. It was a big house. Car insurance, for 2 cars $280 Medicare premiums. Part B plus supplemental $420 phones and internet, $220. Column 2, variable needs. Groceries, $900, they were eating well. Gas for the cars, $300 household supplies, cleaning, $150. Column 3, wants and luxuries. The new car payment, $780 the other car, paid off but still needed gas, $100 the golf club, $450 restaurants/dinners out, $600, they were eating out 3x a week, travel, their vacation fund, $650, they were putting this aside on top of their spending, gifts and grandkids, $300, they were very generous, clothes, hobbies, etc. $400. When they were done, I told Eleanor to add it all up. She clicked the final button on the calculator. She looked at the number. She turned the calculator off and on again. She did the math a second time. She looked up at me, her face as white as a sheet. "What is it, Ellie?" Robert asked, annoyed. "What's the number?" Eleanor couldn't speak. She just slid the legal pad across the table. Robert put on his reading glasses. He looked, and I watched the blood drain from his face. The total was $7,800. That can't be right," Robert stammered. "That's $7,800. A month." "Yes, Robert," I said softly. "That's $93,600 a year," he whispered, doing the math in his head. $93,000. "And your Social Security?" I asked. "How much is that combined?" "About $48,000 a year," Eleanor said, her voice a tiny thread. I took the pad. "So, you need $93,600 to live. Your Social Security gives you $48,000. That means you have a gap of $45,600. "A gap," Robert said, shaking his head. "But the market. We just take it from the market." "Yes," I said, "you do. You have to pull $45,600 a year from your $1 million nest egg." "Robert, what was your nest egg on January 1st? He winced. "After the market drop. And after the HVAC. It's about $810,000. My heart broke. I picked up the calculator. $45,600 divided by $810,000. "Robert, that is a 5.6% withdrawal rate." They just stared at me. They didn't understand. "Darlings," I said, "the safe rule, the one all the smart people talk about, is the 4% rule. It means you should, in your first year of retirement, pull out no more than 4% of your savings. And then adjust that number for inflation each year. At that rate, your money has a very high chance of lasting for 30 years. You are pulling out 5.6%. In a down market. That's called sequence of return risk. It's like pulling the first Jenga block from the bottom. The whole tower is now unstable. At this rate, you're not just spending. You are eating your principal." Robert looked like he'd been punched. But, at 5.6%, how long does it last?" I did the math. I didn't want to. If the market stays flat and you keep spending this, maybe 15, 16 years. If the market goes down again, maybe 12. 12 years. Eleanor's voice was a shriek. 12. We'll be 79. What happens then? What do we do?" Robert stood up so fast his chair fell over. He walked to my window and just stared. He was looking at his shiny new SUV in my driveway. His free money car. This was the moment the dream died. And then Eleanor, in a daze, walked back into my kitchen. She'd gone to the store that morning before our meeting. She'd bought a treat for herself, a little bag of gourmet, fair trade vanilla hazelnut coffee beans. It cost $3.50 more than her usual Maxwell House. She'd agonized over the purchase for 5 minutes in the aisle. She picked up the bag from my counter where she'd left it. She looked at this little $3.50 splurge. And she looked at the $780 car payment on the legal pad. And she looked at the $450 golf club fee. And she finally understood. She wasn't being squeezed by her $3.50 coffee. She was being drowned by her $780 car. She had been trying to patch a gushing fire hose with a tiny little band-aid. She had been flying blind and they had just, at 30,000 T0 feet, run out of fuel. Now I want you all to take a deep breath. Eleanor and Robert are. Well, they're not on the street. But they had to make choices that broke their hearts. They sold the house. It took them 6 months, but they sold the beautiful home they'd raised their children in. The one with the oak tree. They paid a huge tax bill on the profit, by the way, which they also hadn't planned for. They bought a small 2-bedroom condo in an active adult community. It's nice, but it's not home. They sold the $780 a month SUV. Robert now drives a 5-year-old Toyota. They quit the golf club. Robert, bless his heart, is now a greeter at the local hardware store 3 days a week. He's 71. He tells everyone it's just to stay busy. It's not. It's for the paycheck. They're going to be okay. But the secure, glorious, champagne toast retirement they earned, it's gone. They exchanged it, piece by piece, for things they didn't even know they couldn't afford. I am telling you this story, my dears, not to scare you. I am telling you this to protect you. You cannot be an Eleanor or a Robert. You cannot run your retirement on feelings. Retirement is not a feeling. It is a math problem. So here is your homework. This is Granny's prescription. You are going to do it tonight. 1. You must find your burn rate. I don't care if you've been retired for 10 years or you're 10 years away. Tonight, you get your last 3 months of bank statements, credit card statements, and every bill. You get a legal pad just like I gave Eleanor. You add up every single dollar that went out your door. Well, that is your real number. You are not allowed to feel about it. You are only allowed to know it. 2. You must face the gap. Once you have your yearly burn rate, your monthly number times 12, I want you to get your total Social Security, pension, or any other income. Subtract that income from your burn rate. The number that's left over. That is your gap. That is the amount of money you must pull from your nest egg every year just to live. 3. You must respect the 4% rule. Take your gap number. Now look at your total nest egg. Is the gap more than 4% of your nest egg? If it is, you have a problem. You are in the red zone. You are not living on the interest. You are eating your seed corn. You must immediately go back to your burn rate list and start making cuts. And you don't cut the $3.50 coffee. You cut the $780 car. You cut the $450 club. You cut the big, heavy things until your gap is 4% or less. You must automate and isolate. Once you have your safe gap number, you automate it. You set up an automatic transfer from your big brokerage account to your little checking account. That is your new paycheck. You get that paycheck once a month, and that is all you get. When the checking account is empty, it's empty. You learn to live on your salary again. This protects the big nest egg. Protects you from yourself. It stops you from just taking what you need. My dears, a retirement nest egg is not a bottomless pit of money. It's a block of ice. And it's your job to make it last for 30 years. You can't be taking giant, greedy slurps. You have to let it melt slowly, predictably. Don't be afraid of your numbers. They are not your enemy. They are your guide. They are the light in the darkness. As my own granny used to say, a secret in the dark always grows teeth. Eleanor and Robert lived with a secret. They were afraid to look at the one simple number that defined their life, what it cost to be them. And in the dark, that secret grew teeth, and it bit them. Turn on the light, darlings. Open the statements. Do the math. It is the only way to build a retirement that is truly, deeply, and lastingly secure. Now go on. You have your homework. Be safe out there.